What you are about to hear is the story of true African success. The story of two Nigerian young men that came together to start a company that they didn't know would play a pivotal role in shaping the country that they were a part of and the minds of thousands, if not millions, of Nigerian youth. They created Red. They created a story. They created a movement, and Red became part of history.
What myself and Trudy have is a powership. It's not a partnership, it's a powership. And so it's the connection that brought us together, into forming this power block.
In the 80s, two male children born into different backgrounds, different families, different worlds, with different experiences, somehow came to view the world in the same way. The first, Trudy Gideonwu, got schooled by life as it were and day-to-day experiences, while the other, Adebola Williams, matured into a force field by his thirst for knowledge.
So Adebola has this force field around him where he invades. He does it now. So when I'm in a meeting, he just invades my space. And I was sitting down there and I was on my own. I wasn't talking to anybody, which I usually do. But this person kept interrupting me, disturbing me. Like, oh, what do you think about that? So inevitably, I got sucked into that web.
I was the one who read. I read a lot. Now I'm ashamed of my reading habit, compared to when I was young. When I was in primary 6, I was reading Mills and Bones. I'd read maybe 50. When I was in, you can look at me and say, oh, that boy was traumatized. No, I wasn't, and I learned a lot. When I was in GSS 1, I was reading Frederick Forsyth. I was reading Daniel Steele, Jackie Collins, Jeffrey Archer, James Patterson. So I was a GSS 1, primary 6 GSS 1 student. I was in Rome, I was in Vietnam, I was in the war, I was in the UK, I was on those streets, My mind was huge, my vision was big. And so it falls into character that many times I couldn't make friends with my peers because they just weren't on the same page with me. The things I was talking about was not what they were talking about. The things I was interested in, and that was because I had read and the books had opened my mind. And so I was seeing bigger. So while I was in GSS 1 in my secondary school, all my friends were in SS 3.
Trudy Gideonwu, one of the founders, was from your average Nigerian family with just enough to get by. Caught up in this environment, what was taken for the regular middle-class average family at that time was actually the hustle instinct already beginning to seep into the Nigerian child that later became the youth of today.
But this was under IBB, and that's why I'm very resentful about IBB, and I've written articles about this because I believe that at that time, the fabric of Nigerian society collapsed. Many parents, many families lost their sense of stability. Many people lost their jobs, corruption became endemic, people realized more pungently that you couldn't live in Nigeria without cutting corners. Nigeria just basically told you couldn't do a lot of things. You could only go this far and no farther than this. You must also remember that this was the time when Nigerian TV died. Nigerian music died. Nigerian music died in the 80s, essentially 80s, early 90s. Entire 90s, you go into clubs and what you would hear was foreign music until Plantation Boys and Primetime Jams came. So it's also a time of a media blackout. So you want to imagine how that is on a young person. Growing up under military dictatorship, growing up seeing that effect on his family over a period of a few years.
As a child, his perception of Nigeria was formed by the traumatic experience he encountered on his way to school.
Pictures as I grew up being afraid of Nigeria. I remember coming back from primary school and seeing a dead body at Bako Aguda. A man was eating from I remember the image, from a steel plate, and he was eating, sitting down there, one of the conductors, and he died there with the food coming from his mouth. And he was there for 2 days. I went to school and came back, and came back and I was there.
This experience scarred him for life, but it built his perception of what he did not want to be, and also of the kind of society he did not want to be a part of. His learning process, experiences, formative years, and formation of his ideology system were truly organic and purely Nigerian.
So I grew up on purely Nigerian content. We didn't have, there was time when Nigerians have satellite dishes in their house. Big deal in the 80s and 90s. Why did they have a satellite dish? Until 1996 or something. The year that DSTV came and then all the satellite dishes disappeared was the year my father bought satellite dish. So 3 months after I finally saved money to buy a satellite dishes were not getting free to air anymore. So people don't understand that. So sometimes I'm in the house, I sing something funny. Maybe I sing Baby Walang Colombo, I sing I Don't Tire, they go back to my village. And there'll be like 16 young people who are my age mates who don't know the song. And I'm like, I'm not mad.
Like Chinua Achebe was able to move the world with his literary art that was influenced by his Eastern Nigerian originality, what Chude and Adebola have done in similar fashion is they have given to us our own version of the successful life the emerging Nigerian youth can aspire to, despite disadvantages and doors slamming in their faces.
Nigeria gave me nothing. Nothing.
We never had plan A only. Never. It was always A, B, C, D, E, F.
Plan B, plan C, plan D.
Because we didn't have money. All we had was passion. So yes, people will say no. People will say yes. Then in the middle, they will say no. People will say yes, and the day before they will say no. People will say yes, and on that day, they will bring you something totally different from what they promised you. The future awards, we got there, the door was locked. We were owing 80,000 naira. We got in at 4 o'clock. The hall was dirty. We picked up brooms. I started sweeping. Massive and Emilia.
Now, again, I look back and I think how remarkable that was. Because I see a lot of young people who, if they don't have a computer, they will not write a proposal. Like, there was no computer, there was no power, there was no internet. And I'm very profoundly inspired by their ability to give up so soon.
That event, our anchors did not show up. So right there at that event, Shegobe and Ashoyin anchored the event. People thought they were the anchors, but they were not.
Chude found purpose in accomplishing to do for his world what the old media had failed to do for his father.
But my father did this book called Trades and Products, and he wanted to sell it, wanted to market it, and he didn't have any experience in media. And so he went to a newspaper, one of the top 10 newspapers in Nigeria now, in Apapa at the time, to place an advert. And that advert cost him a lot of money for a quarter page. He didn't get a lot of responses from that advert. And it pained me. Even now I'm talking about it, it still pains me because I know how passionate my father was about that thing. And I know that he had saved money to do that thing, but he didn't get any response. And it was deeply depressing to hear. And it struck me that this is not the most effective way of... And I wish somebody had advised my father with his meager civil servant resources on the best way to do this. And this image was stuck in my mind for a long time. And that's when I became concerned about communication. So right now, when we talk about communication in red, we really say we're not concerned about newspaper or magazines or online or print. We're concerned about what is the most effective way for you to move any idea. And I realized, teaching people at Daystar Business Academy, that was the reason why. Because I don't want anybody to feel that pain that my father felt with his own hard-earned money at that time.
This sparked his interest in communication. He was then inspired to be part of the way things worked in the media by watching Fumi Inyanda and Agatha Amata, which led to how he met with Adebola.
We met on the set of Inside with Agatha. Yeah, and they were talking about sex. They're talking about a conversation about sex. If sex before marriage was good or not. And you obviously know where we were. You can obviously know where Chude stood and where I stood. We were opposite. So figure it out.
You have to
and then after the show, we continued the argument.
I was grateful that somebody was talking to me eventually. So we started talking, and that's how we started talking. So it was Agatha's shows would record 6 episodes at a time. So it was a recorded show, so there would be breaks. So we kept talking during the breaks, and we were talking about ideas. And I used to be so shy. I still am shy of talking about things in my head because I feel that people don't understand. And when you share it, they dismiss it because they cannot conceive it. But Debola made it so comfortable for me to share what was in my head. And he was understanding everything I was saying, and he was sharing his own ideas about his own concepts that aligned with the way that I saw the world and the way that I saw the media.
While in school, they were both strong advocates for self-development, for the life and career that they had chosen.
So to be able to develop myself, that's why I started working at 15. So all the time I was in school, I was working first at the Sunday show with Livia Jonuma, then at Inside Out with Agatha, then Celebrating Jesus with Gina Harry. Then eventually I went to Fumi Yonda, New Dawn with Fumi Yonda, where I spent 3 years, and I worked with Common Ground Production. So over a period of 6 years I was in Unilag. I was basically 6 years in media school, because by that time I had worked in every single aspect. And I was also doing stuff with Touch of Spice with Funala Ofiebi on Star FM at the time. And so I had parallel schools. So the school I was doing this one basically to get my degree, And I was doing this one because I wanted to prepare myself for the future. I certainly knew. So by the time of my second year, I knew I certainly wasn't going to practice law. It was obvious.
I remember meeting someone called Jerome. Jerome was very key, with the role he played in my life, because at that time, he was a personal analyst. And as a personal analyst, he used to help people understand themselves. So I went to work with him as a volunteer. Internship, So it was first an internship, then it became a proper job, as a young counselor in training. But while working with him, he helped me understand myself. And I realized I was an influence in later.
Their attitude to life and work was to always leave an indelible impression on the minds of those they came across. This became the capital they leveraged on at the formation of their business partnership in 2006.
I thought, I need to build a force field of goodwill because I think I'm going to do something in the future. And when I'm going to do that, I'm going to need all these people. So every time I met people, I made sure that I did my work so well that they were impressed. Even if I didn't know what I would need them for. And so by the time we were forming Red, I had this massive pool of contacts. When we formed Red, that's what we used as capital. The only thing we had was social capital.
At the end of that event, I remember people saying, and they said they don't have money. Look at this kind of grand event. Look at food everywhere. Look at small shops. Look at cocktails. Little did they know the hours of sitting with Sahito and begging for partnership and Labash cocktails. Those were the people. And Sahito till tomorrow just supports us for nothing. Just supports us.
Red wasn't always a story of two. There was a third partner at the beginning who gave her all to the birthing of the company.
We had a co-founder called Amelia. She went on to found an incredible organization that works in CSR development, which has always been her passion. So when she was at Red, one of what she was doing was to help set the structure for what was at the time the Future Awards.
So she added value, fantastic value.
Amelia was the big ideas person, and she was completely and utterly convinced that it was possible.
And it was time for her to move on, because the vision started changing. As she was a bit more interested in what she's doing now, which is corporate responsibility.
Red Media was given an opportunity to show the world what they were about with the 2015 presidential campaign, which, contrary to popular beliefs, was not an ego-boosting affair or a money-making venture, but a means to establish the organizational identity.
Obviously, working for the Buhari campaign is an important highlight. Not for reasons people think about. First and foremost, of course, it's good for the business to have worked for the president. We walk into places where are rock stars. It's great. When building a business, those things are important. I don't take them for granted. But what it is that we're very interested in building things where people have not built before. And in Nigeria, doing things in governance means that you're a hustler or that you are trying to get a government appointment. People don't see that you can be a professional trying to actually change things. And so it was the first time in our recent history that a communication agency was being appointed, a Nigerian communication agency, to handle a presidential campaign formally. So that was the first victory. Governance is a particular focus of ours, but people don't understand what we're trying to do. Our mission is simply to take the media to revolutionize government. Now, there couldn't have been a bigger demonstration of what we are as a company but the Buhari campaign.
But this opportunity came as a result of what they had built over the years, through their advocacy for change, which cut across governance, social orientation, economic stability, and overall youth involvement in national affairs. This had been the driving force that gave birth to the Future projects and Rubbing Minds. These various arms of the organization had been able to impact the ordinary Nigerian directly and effectively.
Becoming a volunteer was actually a first step in becoming who I am, or I think it's actually one of those things I need that I think would take me to where I really want to be in life. It actually made me to start bringing out and to start digging deep and exploring some of my abilities too.
The only time I worked in a bank, but the only time I realized that I was going to resign from the bank was when I won the Future Awards. I looked at, I knew that, oh, this thing makes sense. This thing looks big, because I was still working in the bank. when I want the future I want.
It is possible to change your circumstances by yourself in spite of the disadvantages.
Some people ask me for what is the one thing that the Nigerian young person needs to know. It's the fact that it is possible to change your circumstance by yourself.
Failure is not an option. I tell people all this. I say, the fact that you're not even succeeding is a shame not just to yourself, but it's a disappointment to God who gave you the talent.
In spite of a rundown government, in spite of a lack of structures that support new businesses,
You owe it to yourself and to God and to man.
if there's anything I've learned from 10 years of the Future Awards, over 1,000 nominees, over 200 winners from different circumstances, blind, deaf, mute, crippled, male, female, educated, uneducated, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Lagos, Damaturu, Benin, former prostitutes, parents dead. I've heard all kinds of stories.
And so the fact that you're sitting here and not finding your own genius is not just a failure to yourself, but it's a failure to the people around you who you're supposed to be using your genius to change their lives. And it's a failure to your God who put genius in you.
Constant, never changed, never failed. It is possible for a human being to change his or her own circumstance by his or herself, irrespective of how difficult the circumstance can be. If young people can know that and believe that, then anything is possible.
10 years down the line, Red is still telling inspiring stories, selling hope, and doing.
An inspired person is the most potent force in the world.
Just do it. Anybody who wants to make a difference, just do it.
So when they ask us what are we do, we say we sell hope. We sell hope. And we say that we give people access to stories that inspire them, and that usually the rest take care of themselves.
This is our story.